Well, Draymond Green has been in the news again. I don't know. I can never tell if that's a good or bad thing, but in this case, it gives us content. And he said some interesting things. So we'll talk about those statements. Former Warriors head coach Mark Jackson had some comments about Klay Thompson's free agency and what he thinks Klay deserves. The NBA playoffs are in full swing. There's a correlation with the Golden State Warriors that unfortunately does not include them actually playing in the playoffs, but whatever. It's May 13th. Happy Monday. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use the code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. I love PrizePicks. Strongly recommend it. It's a fun time. And by the way, the offer still stands. If you ever want to know what my picks are, just DM me. My Threads handle, you can follow me on Threads at DogWild, is the same as what's on Instagram. So DM me there until they get the DM thing set up on Threads, and I'll happily share my picks. I am proud to say that I've never had to deposit money into my PrizePicks account. They set every host of Locked On some years ago when they first signed up as a sponsor with free accounts and a little money in there. So I've never had to put money in. Whether it's luck, whether it's the fact that maybe I know what I'm talking about, who knows? In any event, if you want to pick my brain about your PrizePicks picks, sorry for the redundancy, shoot me a DM. And again, as I mentioned a moment ago, you can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Threads at DogWild. The program is also there. You can follow it at Locked On Warriors. Why don't we get into Draymond Green? He has a podcast of his own, and he said a couple things this last week that raised some eyebrows a little bit. And these comments, there are two clips that I want to play on the show today. The first had to do with the New York Knicks, and he riled up the New York fan base. Why don't we take a listen to what he had to say? This is in regards to the Knicks, how they're playing in the postseason. And let's just say the folks in the Big Apple are not very happy with Draymond right now.
In the Eastern Conference, you can get to the conference finals a la the Atlanta Hawks with like playing very mid teams. And so that's kind of what y'all are doing right now. And I think what this is setting up for y'all up for is what happened to the Atlanta Hawks 3 years ago when they made the conference finals and they never got back. Another team to give you some perspective on this. Nope, but 1 second. Another team that did this to give you some perspective on this was the Portland Trailblazers years ago when they had Al-Farouq Aminu, Allen Crabbe, all those guys. They had all those guys, and they went to the conference finals, and we swept them pretty much without Steph Curry. They ran off and paid all of those guys because they thought they had a team that had a chance, and it was a fluke. And so that's what the Knicks are setting y'all up for right now, and it'll be probably another 15 years of misery that we all will sit around and laugh at Knicks fans with their delusion about.
Right, here we go.
That's,
Knicks for clicks.
That's just
you don't
that's
believe
just
it,
what it.
you
that's
know
just
what's
what
going to
happens.
You know what's going to happen. Now everybody wants to play on the big stage. You said it yourself. You love the Garden. It is the Mecca, and now we have a high-functioning team.
Who's we, first of all? Secondly, I have no idea who that person was speaking to Draymond. I looked into it a little bit, and apparently he's someone who hosts some podcast. I don't know what the setup was with that or the situation in regards to that other individual, but I agree with Draymond. I'm totally on the same page with him for a couple of reasons. One, Tom Tibido, you're seeing the negative of him as a head coach, which is he will work his players to death. He will ride the players he likes until they break down, literally. This happened with the Chicago Bulls. I'm not blaming Derrick Rose's injury on him, but Jimmy Butler, I remember playing really extended minutes, playing for Tibbs, and that's how he rolls. He doesn't worry about minute restrictions. He will literally ride you until you break. And we're seeing this again with the New York Knicks now. How many players are injured on that roster? I'm not blaming him per se in this situation, but generally speaking, New York Knicks teams, Tom Thibodeau teams, again, he has his favorites like most coaches do, and he will ride them until their body starts to break down. And we're seeing it happen right now. And it's a huge reason why the Indiana Pacers are likely going to advance in that series. So I agree with him. It also was interesting that he brought up the two teams he brought up. I didn't think the Atlanta Hawks example was apropos. I don't see a lot of similarities between the Hawks and the Knicks for the simple reason that, to me, Jalen Brunson is the real deal. Trae Young, not so much. Trae Young is entertaining if he's on your team. He'll score points. He'll razzle and dazzle, but he also does not play defense, and we have yet to see him make his teammates better. Jalen Brunson, even though he's 6'2", has the physique of a linebacker. Do you like a little football reference there? I'm not going to wade into that little drama going on where people are debating whether or not NBA players can play in the NFL right now if they wanted to. I'm not touching on that. But I figure there was full pun intended saying that there, for the reason being that that is a hot topic for some reason that I could care less about. But Jalen Brunson is built like a tank. The dude has the physique of a power forward as a point guard. So even though he's 6'2", because he's super strong, because he's naturally on the stocky side, and I say that in a complimentary manner, he causes problems for other teams. He can get inside. He can body up. He can play defense. And I actually think he's a more efficient scorer than Trae Young. I don't know if like the total points would match what Trae Young does. The point is, for that reason alone, I don't see a correlation there between the Hawks and the Knicks. But the Portland Trailblazer reference, that is interesting because a lot of people after 2019, even though the Warriors swept them in 4, and what a series that was, because myself included, I don't think most people expected the Warriors to beat Portland in that series, let alone sweep them. I mean, what a series that was. And that was testament to the core three and just how good they are, and maybe more important, and maybe more importantly, just how incredible of a player Steph and Curry was, because Kevin Durant was still on that team. Kevin Durant missed that series because of injury, and that's a huge reason why a lot of people counted them out. But they swept Portland. With that said, the Trailblazers were looked at as a team that was on the up. Dame Lillard was still very much in his prime. I'm not saying he's not now, but he was in his 20s then. Now he's in his 30s. You had CJ McCollum and that whole crew. I mean, people for years were talking about Lillard and McCollum as being rivals in terms of the best backcourt in the NBA with the Splash Brothers. In hindsight, that's a ludicrous comparison, but for a little while there, people were saying that. So the Portland thing is a little more interesting, yet they were also fluky because what happened? They never came back anywhere near where they were in that season in terms of the depth of the playoffs that they reached and regular season success. And so that was interesting. I actually agree with Draymond. He also said something else, and this is going to be a very Draymond-centric show because there's something else I observed in the Timberwolves Nuggets series, which more and more so is looking like the NBA Finals preview. It very much seems so to me. I think whoever comes out of the series will win the title, but something is sticking out there, and Draymond Green has something to do with it. We got a lot more to discuss. First, let's give some love to our sponsors, and for today, they are... First up, PrizePicks. Mentioned them just a moment ago. Daily fantasy made easy, daily fantasy that's fun. And here's maybe the best part of PrizePicks. At least if you live in California, which I'm guessing a lot of you do if you're a member of Dub Nation. It's legal here. Whereas you can't do traditional sports gambling in California, that remains illegal. But daily fantasy sports is the loophole. You can bet with PrizePicks here in California. It is absolutely legal. And right now, with the NBA playoffs in full swing, you can bet on all this action. And the premise is simple. In case you've forgotten or you've never heard this ad read before, it's a minimum of 2 players, maximum of 6 players. And the entire premise is you're betting on individuals and whether or not they're going to, for example, score more or less than a certain amount, whether they're going to grab more or less than a certain amount of rebounds, dish out more or less than a certain amount of assists. That's what you're doing. You're picking individuals and deciding based on the lines that PrizePicks sets whether or not they'll achieve more or less than that certain amount. And right now, you can win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with basketball, hockey, you name it, on PrizePicks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. It's super fun. It makes the boring interesting. Download the app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, one more time. Download the PrizePicks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Damn right. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Do you have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news. Streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And again, you can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Threads at Dogwild. Hopefully it's a super easy handle. Let's hear what else Draymond Green had to say on the most recent episode of his podcast, because I mentioned there were 2 things that stuck out from the most recent episode that I feel like are a little discussion worthy. Here's the other one, and it has to do with the MVP award.
Joker, 3rd MVP in 4 seasons, Shea runner-up. Do I feel it was the correct decision? I mean, Joker's great. However, I think the way Shea closed the season, he had a great season all year, but the way he closed the season, the way it came down the stretch of who was going to get the number 1 seed, like the number 1 seed and all that stuff mattered when Joker got the number 1 seed, but now it don't matter when Shea get the number 1 seed. I thought the way the season closed out, I'm not necessarily going to say Shea should have won. I think it should have been a lot closer, though. A lot of these voters have their mind made up far before they should. Mine's made up too early, and it's hard to move them off that, and I think, Shea was hit with a case of that. And it's unfortunate, but he got, Shea will continue to get better as he has in this league. But congrats to Joker, well-deserved. What he continues to do to opposing defenses every night is unmatched and unlike pretty much anything we've ever seen in the league.
Absolutely. And that particularly applies now because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, his team is down 2-1 against the Mavericks. Nikola Jokic, who a lot of people left for dead, his team has evened up that series. What a series that is. That Nuggets Timberwolves series is A-grade, top choice NBA basketball. It is a phenomenal series. And for Jokic and the Nuggets to bounce back against the NBA's number 1 defense and to put up points on them the way they're doing is amazing. Now, a little pushback on Draymond saying, the Thunder got the number 1 seed. So, all of a sudden now that doesn't matter as much with the MVP voting. Look, the Nuggets finished, a game back? I mean, they were in the mix until the very end. Also goes to show how important these regular season games are. And more specifically for the Nuggets, that Spurs game that they lost last minute near the end of the season. Man, if the Nuggets win that game, they're playing. Do you really think they would rather not be playing in the second round the Mavericks instead of the Timberwolves right now? That's the difference in that one game that the Nuggets lost at the very end. If they had won that game, they would have been the top seed. They're taking easy care of the Mavericks in the second round, while we'd be watching Minnesota OKC right now, and then you'd likely see Denver and Minnesota in the Western Conference Finals. Instead, because the Nuggets lost that game, the race in the top 3 was that close. But the reason why I played that clip, besides, it was a little entertaining here and taking a peek into Draymond's mind in regard to the MVP vote, is what I'm seeing in this T-Wolves Nuggets series is yet another reminder that Rudy Gobert is the most overrated player in NBA history. I wrote that on my Threads account yesterday, got a little pushback. And the reason, and because again, it is kind of a bold statement in NBA history. We're talking 80 years approximately. But the reason why I say that is because he gets paid like a top tier player. He's making damn near max dollars. In fact, I should probably look that up to see how much he's actually making. But more important than that, the dude just won his 4th Defensive Player of the Year award. That is absolutely ludicrous. And it goes to show just how just clueless and out of touch so many of these voters are who vote for these things. And it really diminishes the value of that award. Rudy Gobert, by the way, is going to made $41 million this year, makes $43 million next year. He has a player option, which he's almost certainly going to exercise 2 years from now when he's 33 years old, and he's going to make $46 million that year. So the dollar amounts are reason one why I consider him to be the most overrated player in NBA history. But secondly, it's those 4 Defensive Player of the Year awards. And the reason why every time I see him win that award, I cringe. I cringe for this reason. If Rudy Gobert was as good defensively as 4 awards would be testament to, you would expect him to be able to shut down NBA players. But he doesn't. Luka Doncic schools him. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander schools him. And in this series, the Minnesota Timberwolves are 1-2 in games that Gobert plays in. Remember, they won game 2 because Gobert was not in because of the birth of his child. It was first child. And Nikola Jokic feasts, he borderline drools when he sees Rudy Gobert assigned defensively to him. And he attacks with abandon. He is not afraid of Rudy Gobert at all. Most players aren't afraid of him. Those 4 Defensive Player of the Year awards are based largely on the fact that in the regular season, against most teams, he plays well. He's also durable. The durability factor of him is always been, to me, the one thing that sticks out as a positive. But he's so grossly overrated that when the Nuggets and the Timberwolves play each other, Nikola Jokic is not even guarded by Gobert. Watch closely. Minnesota will usually put either Karl Anthony Towns or Naz Reid defensively on him. That's because Gobert can't defend him. Yet he's worthy of 4 Defensive Player of the Year awards. Victor Wembanyama should have won it this year, and he's going to win it every year moving forward. But the 3 previous ones, he won it, his first one in 2017, 2018, when the Warriors won the title. Why did Draymond Green not win it that year? That's egregious. He won his second Defensive Player of the Year in 2018-19. Why didn't Draymond Green win it that year? Draymond Green can defend 1 through 5, and he's about as close to a lockdown defender as we're ever going to see in our lifetimes. I've said this before. I'll say it again. Draymond Green is a top 3 all-time defensive player. The only player I certainly put above him is Dennis Rodman. And I don't know if you put anyone else above him. I mean, the list is short in terms of the elite all-time defenders, whether you're talking about Michael Jordan, whether you're talking about Bruce Bowen. I mean, Draymond Green is in that discussion. Yet Draymond Green has 1 Defensive Player of the Year award. Rudy Gobert has 4. Rudy Gobert had no business stealing those awards from Draymond in those first 2 times that I just mentioned, from 2017 to 2019, when the Warriors were still the best team in the NBA. They did not three-peat in 2019 only because of injuries. Now, the 2020-2021 season, fine. Okay, the Utah Jazz had the best record in the NBA. The Warriors were in the midst of a year off. That was the year where Steph and Curry got injured 4 games in. They won 15 games that season, worse than the NBA. Fine. Give Gobert the 1 Defensive Player of the Year award in 2020-2021. But this year, give it to Victor Wembanyama. The Rook earned it. And in those other 2 years, Draymond Green was robbed. A Defensive Player of the Year should not be getting schooled in a playoff series. Yet that is what is happening to him. And from my perspective, I think the only way Minnesota turns this back around is if Gobert sees less minutes out there. He's an offensive liability. He does nothing offensively except set screens and put up putback buckets. That's it. That's all he does. He can't shoot. He has no post-up game. And Draymond got robbed those 2 years. It's ridiculous. So anyways, that's Draymond for you. I'm done talking about him. In just a moment, we're going to shift gears, and I'm going to play a clip of Mark Jackson. He was on Gil's Arena. That is a former Warriors player, Gilbert Arenas' podcast / show. And Mark Jackson and the crew had a discussion about Klay Thompson. We'll play that after we give some love to our final sponsor of the day. And that is official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network, and that's FanDuel. I wish FanDuel was legal in California. It bums me out to no end that here in Cali, I can't just open my phone and open the FanDuel app and win money. So if you're in a state where FanDuel is legal, congratulations, because it's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Just find the easiest bet imaginable out there, bet the money line, win $5, and then get another 150 automatically added to your account. That's $150 you can place on spreads, money lines, player props, and so much more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. For the everydayers, we're back at this soon. I'm going to bring Rick Barry back on the show as well. Been a few weeks, maybe a month since he's been on the program. So Rick will come on the show. My good friend Larry Krueger, Mark Jones of ESPN is going to make an appearance. we got a lot of content to come. So in case you're wondering what's going on with Locked On Warriors, just follow me on Threads at Dogwild. Super easy. And again, the program is also available there at Locked On Warriors. So why don't we take a listen to Mark Jackson, the man who's largely responsible for at least the launch of the Warriors dynasty. I don't think he gets enough credit for his impact and influence on the dynasty. The Warriors were a joke of a franchise for 30-something years before Mark Jackson became the head coach and brought out the best in players like Steph and Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. And yeah, he knows these guys. The Warriors were a good team when he was the head coach. They didn't win titles, but they were a damn good team. And the foundation was built while Mark Jackson was the head coach. So here he is talking about his former player, Klay Thompson, who's going to be an unrestricted free agent soon. And let's hear from Mark and company. He was on with Gilbert Arenas. Let's hear what they have to say.
Wanted at least 4 years, right? I know he wanted at least 4 year 100, right? Yep. Is that what the number?
Because that's what they gave Draymond.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure in his mind he thinks he's valued more than
absolutely.
Draymond.
So
let's say what,
that was
20.
He wanted that from. Let's put it in context though. So start though, he wanted that from the Warriors.
Huh?
He wanted that money from the Warriors. What you just said. For whatever, he wanted that from the team that he was with.
So I'm giving him 20, 25 when you look around the league who's making that kind of money.
I
still think he has plenty in the tank. Guys that can shoot the ball the way that he shoots the basketball has much more longevity than guys like me. He will still be relevant on the court because of his presence and his ability to knock that shot down. So I think he still has plenty in the tank. I think he's a pro, so he didn't let go of the rope, even though he was frustrated coming off the bench. But he will look forward to the challenge and to prove the doubt is wrong again.
So you think he's still worth 4 year 100?
I do. I definitely do.
I'm with you.
Because they offered him, what, 2 years?
Yeah, 2 years, 40, some 48, some shit like that.
So, yeah, it's right there.
Yeah, but he wanted more
years.
Security. He wanted more security, which I can't blame him, especially from them.
Yeah.
Right?
Especially from them, yeah.
From them, right?
I know he wanted at least 4 year 100, right? Yep. Is that what the number?
Oh, there we go. Okay, so now it's recycling. So Mark Jackson advocating for Klay, saying he's still deserving of 20 to 25 million a year. Klay, we've heard this before as well, that Klay reportedly is looking for a contract identical to what Draymond Green got. Let's get one thing let's make one thing very clear here. Draymond Green and Klay Thompson bring two very different skill sets. They're two very different players. And at this stage of their careers, what the Warriors need, Draymond Green can still provide. Veteran leadership, defense, facilitating the offense. Whereas Klay Thompson is no longer consistent. And the shooting, it's just for the amount of money that he's likely going to command. For the Golden State Warriors, I'm not going to hate it if they re-sign him. I mean, if the goal is to keep the trio together, make them lifers, great. But I guarantee the Warriors are also looking at their salary cap situation. And they're fully aware that if they don't re-sign Klay Thompson, they're close to $30 million below the luxury tax. This is also provided Chris Paul does not sign or the Warriors don't give Chris Paul the $30 million team option. And if you do that and you move on from Klay Thompson, who will likely command interest again from the Orlando Magic and the Philadelphia 76ers are another team I'm hearing a lot of grumbling about in terms of where he could go. Then you have two mid-level exceptions you can work with to sign free agents. One of those mid-level exceptions is in the 12 million range. You can find talent for 12 million a year. And it's actually 12 point something. So it's close, almost close. I think it's almost I think it's actually closer to 13 million a year. And then you get a second mid-level exception for 4-point-something million. And with that kind of money, you can get 2, 3, 4 role players, serviceable role players, not Dario Saric types, but folks who can play both sides of the ball, folks who can shoot the three consistently. And you can add some quality depth to your roster. That's what Klay Thompson costs you. Because if you re-sign him, then those mid-level exceptions are in danger of being gone. And you're in danger of the repeater tax, meaning doing it again and again, which is punitive. We've heard Joe Lacob talking about wanting to avoid the repeater tax, meaning avoid being penalized year after year after year. So we'll see. It's still early. I hope your Monday's going okay. Mondays suck. I don't know. There's just no way to spin it. And again, these last 3 games between Minnesota and Denver, titillating, compelling. I'm all in. If the Warriors aren't giving you the playoffs, at least we're getting some good action, folks. We'll be back at this very soon. Thanks for joining me as always. And until the next time, bye.